Maurice and welcome to Tanks Invest, where we talk about investing, finance, and professional development. For today's video, it is purposes only. The investment we're going to talk about today would be Ethereum and Bitcoin. So the highly anticipated CPO report came out today, and with respect to Wall Street consensus and investment sentiment so far, it seems like the report is trending more on the optimistic side of the spectrum, which is subsequently driving more of a selling pressure across the safe haven type of investment vehicles like gold, like cryptocurrencies, while on the opposite spectrum on the equity market, the index funds like Nasdaq and the SPY, which is the S&P 500, is currently up about like 1% respectively. So with respect to this sell-off or this minimal sell-off, I'm going to go through a technical analysis on the crypto side with respect to Ethereum and Bitcoin to go through what the level of resistance level we should be looking out for going forward. Are we going to see more selling pressure? Are we going to see more pump going forward? How should we think about dollar cost averaging or building a position for the first time? And my price target for year-end 2021 as well. So stay tuned, stick around, let's make some money. Alright, so moving on to the technical analysis, let's look at the equity market real quick. You can see that currently we are up about 0.5% on the SPY, which is the S&P 500. And with respect to Nasdaq, we're up about 0.8%. So it's been a relatively stable market today, leaning more towards the positive green spectrum on the equity portion. And with respect to Tesla, you can see that we're up about 2% today, and with respect to NEO, we're up about 0.05% today. So with respect to like the propensity that the market is driving or foreshadowing at the moment, it seems like we see more of a gradual uptrend across the outlook for the economy going forward, which is a good indicator. But on the opposite spectrum, knowing the fact that Bitcoin and Ethereum, these are cryptocurrencies that are characterized as more of the safe haven type of investment vehicles that investors decide to liquidate some of their holdings on the crypto side, which to be honest is fairly minimal today, and which is a good sign knowing the fact that they're based on just the dynamics of the supply and demand with respect to cryptocurrency. It seems like there are a lot more long-term holders than the short-term holders in the cryptocurrency spectrum, which is a good sign. That means that the selling pressure for crypto is subsiding in a way, despite this major catalyst that we saw today, despite this anti-correlations on the equity market portion in comparisons to the crypto market portion, right? So that is a really good sign. I think my expectation yesterday was that we were going to see a little bit more of a drastic sell-off, because of our preconceived notion that in terms of like investors pool in the equation for cryptocurrencies, that there are a little bit more short-term investors versus long-term investor. And with respect to this not a sizable sell-off, right, about 5% downward trend for Ethereum and about 3% for Bitcoin, it means that people are sustaining their long-term aspiration, that long-term value proposition play, rather than just like short-term swing trade type of momentum play, right? So it's a great sign despite this major catalyst. So let's go through Ethereum real quick. You can see that currently we're down about 5% right now. And with respect to the trend line going forward, we can see that on the MACD, we're kind of fusing together. And with respect to like how we're trending going forward, I actually see more of an upside coming, knowing the fact that RSI we're kind of dipping right now. So we should be expecting some sort of like a rebound soon, knowing the fact that we are currently testing at the resistance level that I've drawn here, the $2,450 level, right? And knowing the fact that we have been oscillating for quite some time now, and the oscillator, a good sign is that we are actually forming more of an upward escalator motion. You could see that we have forming a higher high, right? You could see that the first escalator step was at the 2,100, and the second escalator curve is about like the 2,150, and the third escalator curve that we're seeing right now is the 2,450, which again, right, is the psychological resistance level that we've been forming for a long time, ever since last couple months so far, right? So what I see going forward is that we should be expecting a rebound relatively shortly, as we are more further consolidate, as the line start further fuse together. And as we see more of, more of a selling pressure, minimally, but not a significant amount, I would say is about like maybe a couple $100 downward trend on the maximum, and then reverse back upward, and then we're gonna be basically going back up to the $2,750 level, which is a psychological resistance level that will be forming on the next resistance level, right? So that's the level that we should be looking out for going forward. So today's report was definitely, a negative in a short-term perspective for the crypto market, but a great affectations for long-term value holding perspective. So definitely a great sign. So in terms of like buying it at this moment right now, I would totally suggest doing so. I actually bought some today, knowing the fact that we were going to be expecting a sell-off today, despite the whole sell-off that we're experiencing right now, and we might have some probability of going down to like the 2,150. But based on like the consensus and this like upward escalator trend, I feel fairly confident that we should be going up in a very short amount of time, in the more of a upside oscillation type of momentum going forward. So today I bought 5 Ethereum today, so not a huge portion in comparisons to me loading up, because I was the sell off is relatively minimal. I was expecting a much higher sell off. I was actually saying that we were gonna go down to 2,150, but little did I know. I'm not perfect, right? I was my preconceived notion again, right, was that there was going to be more short-term investors that's going to kind of jerk the market in a way. But in that equation, it was more long-term holder in this equation. So I feel fairly good, and that's why I decided to buy 5 Ethereum today. And with respect to Bitcoin, I would say the sell-offs are relatively minimal, knowing the fact that Bitcoin is a relatively is the giant of the cryptocurrency, right? So with respect to the sell-off, despite this downtrend that we're experiencing right now, we're just kind of hovering away, right? It wasn't really that majorly affected. And I know that earlier today, Bitcoin is actually up, right? In comparison to Ethereum, was actually down. And I think because the reason is because Bitcoin is kind of characterized as more of like a pseudo growth stock at the same time. So Bitcoin has a different characteristics in comparison to Ethereum, knowing the fact that Ethereum is an altcoin. It's a little bit more volatile in terms of like the price fluctuations and manipulations for investors in comparison to Bitcoin, which are most of the time like controlled by whales, which are most of the time institutional investors, or just high net worth individuals that have their specialized platform that they can, trade in a large volume, right? You can't be really trading like 100 Bitcoins or like 1,000 Bitcoins with just Coinbase, right? You need something that is more DeFi focused type of specified sophisticated platform to, to make those executions, right? So with respect to today, I think the long-term investors' appetite was relatively optimistic, right? They are aware that the crypto is the future in a long-term value proposition perspective. We did see some minimal sell-off today, despite this huge pump in the equity market today. But the manipulation was relatively minimal, knowing the fact that we are seeing more and more of adoptions across the board for the cryptocurrencies. And Bitcoin is a lot more stable in comparison to altcoin, which is the reason why we're only down about like 2.53% today in comparison to Ethereum down about 5%. But overall, I would say we are trending in the right directions right now in terms of like corporate adoptions and utilization going forward. And on top of this human psychology that's being played in the supply and demand dynamics as well. What I see as the for Bitcoin going forward, we're pretty much just oscillating at the moment. However, you could see that in comparison to Ethereum, which is more of an uptrend escalator, Bitcoin is showing more of a downward escalator. So I do see some more of a sell-off coming, knowing the fact that the RSI is already overbought in a way in comparisons to, again, Ethereum, which is more on the below level. So I do see more of a sell-off coming for Bitcoin. Probably down to about like the $3,450, $34,500. And on top of that, you could see that the MACD has fused together and it almost crossed down, but it was kind of bouncing back up because of this green candle that we anticipated yesterday, right? Because people were anticipating that the stock was gonna, that the equity market was gonna dump today, and I think the affectation happened yesterday already. So the whole momentum was baked in yesterday ahead of the report coming out today. And again, right, because of the fact that people overreacted and the supply and demand dynamics was overly represented yesterday, that people subsequently have to make that adjustment by buying up the dip, if you may, on the equity portion market today. And with respect to that, yesterday's affectation, it drove that green candle that we see here, right? And today, because of the fact that the report was relatively optimistic, with a larger percentage of long-term investors in play, sustaining the long-term value proposition that they're sustaining going forward, that they are leaning more towards just like holding it for now as a more of just like instead of just like pumping and dumping like the way that it used to be back in the day. So great signs overall, but I do see some more of a selling pressure coming because of the fact that we are kind of separating right now, and the separation is bound to cross down now. So I do foresee some selling pressure down to the 34,500, and then possibly going down to like the $32,000 or the $33,000, and then oscillate back upward from here as we see more of a reversal on the RSI as we dip further around the level, right? So those are the levels I would play at right now. I think overall it's definitely an optimistic report. The economy is slowly coming back up. In terms of the adaptation and utilization, I definitely see more of a long-term holder perspective compared to the short-term pump and dump perspective, which for us, if you think about more long-term, is definitely great for us. But if you're a swing trader, I think you might be like, your patience might be a little bit frustrated, right? Or we might not be swinging as much as we used to be anymore, right? But that's a good sign for us if you're thinking about this on a long-term perspective. Just to recap on all the numbers, so I'm just going to go through Ethereum first. I think the current level of the 2,450, which is the level that actually bought in today, I bought in 5 Ethereum today, is a good level for us to rebound subsequent to it in the coming days. I think testing the 2,750 in the short term will be relatively logical based on how the chart is set up right now, and also with respect to the upward escalator that we are also forming, which is showing more of a bullish signal across the board, right? And with respect to my price target, again, the $9,800 with respect to 20% adoption with 4 times your money from here. And with respect to Bitcoin, I think based on how the chart is set up right now, we are a little bit more bearish in comparison to Ethereum right now. So I do see some more of a reverse sell-off coming forward for Bitcoin, going down to possibly, the 3,200 and like the $32,500 level, and then rebound from there, knowing the fact that we kind of on the overbought zone on a daily perspective, that based on the downward oscillation and the escalator motion that we've been forming, at the same time on how the chart is set up right now, that the current resistance level is strong, but we are at the more of the overbought levels. So in supply and demand dynamics, we have to kind of go back down before we go back up again in the further consolidation oscillation motion, right? So I do foresee some minimal sell-off coming, but not majorly. We're not going to go down to like the $24,000 in like tomorrow or like in a week from now. I think the likelihood for that would be relatively unlikely, knowing the fact that I keep mentioning that based on how the influence came out today, based on the report, it seems like there are a lot more long-term holders in comparison to the short-term holders because of the surprising, lack of volatility that we saw today across the crypto market and across the equity market as well, because of the fact that we are seeing more optimism in the report. And I foresee that the CPI report will be gradually improving as we go, that with more growth, it will propel the equity market to keep going up. But at the same time, because of more long-term holder, that the affectations for the downside for equity market will subside gradually, that eventually we will just be growing in parallel, but obviously with some affectation, obviously, because they are anti-correlated in a way, right? One is more safe haven investment vehicle, one is growth pump type of vehicle, which is equity, right? So I feel like the affectation is getting more and more minimal as we go, which is a good sign if you're a long-term investor, and we will see less volatility going forward. And with respect to my 12-month price target, I still sustain my projections about like close to about 6 digits for Bitcoin, contingent on the 10% corporate adoption, which if we think about like the 12 months price target, $138,000, which subsequently generate like a 4 times of your upside from here if you're buying at this moment right now. So that's it for today with respect to my technical analysis on Ethereum and Bitcoin. I was very fortunate to be able to buy about 5 Ethereum today. And with respect to this long-term value proposition going forward, I feel like based on the investment sentiments and the Wall Street consensus today, it's definitely showing more of a long-term fundamental that's slowly being baked into the cryptocurrency concept across the board, which is a good sign for us long-term investors, right? So definitely a great sign. I'm very fortunate and very happy to be able to be in my position right now. But anyways, hope that it was clear and also give you more transparencies into the depiction that we're seeing in front of us. And please, feel free to reach out if you have any questions as well. Also, lastly, please hit the like button, subscribe button, also the bell notification bell, and watch out for the next video coming up. Take care.